Welcome to the Sex, Money, and Real Estate Podcast, the show for real estate couples about how to close more deals in the bedroom. My name is Nancy Jameson.
And I'm Bill Jameson.
And each week we deep dive into juicy, intentional, sexy conversations, sharing with you what it takes to create balance in your intimate relationships and your real estate business. Thank you so much for being here.
Hey, baby.
Hey, baby.
What's happening?
A whole lot of stuff is happening. How are you being today?
I am great. We are recording on a unusual day for us. We usually record a little earlier in the week, and yet it feels great to be recording today as well. And we probably have some magic to share here today, huh?
Probably so.
Awesome. What you got for magic today?
Today is my 28th day of fasting, and it's a promise in which I made with myself and intentions and commitment that I made to myself, and releasing conversations that definitely no longer serve me or beliefs that no longer serve me. And so it's been a beautiful process of surrender and releasing attachments and enjoying creating food and smoothies. Well, not really food, but smoothies and different juices. And the magic of all of that. So today's day 28. And the magic of all of that is that I've influenced my sister to start her 28-day cleanse as she starts tomorrow. So it's really beautiful and I appreciate it. And so we had this awesome conversation about what it is that I was doing and really drinking. And so it was, it's been vegetable broth, a protein, pea protein, smoothie in the morning, and then juice. So I've made fresh made juices and water or tea. And it's been really neat.
Nice. Awesome. So how's your energy level?
My energy level is fantastic. I feel very grounded. I feel very energized. I feel very strong because I've kept my workouts in place and my runs in place. And so it's been actually quite the opposite of what one normally considers or thinks about or assumes what a fast or a cleanse would be like.
That's cool. Well, maybe one of the next couple episodes could be like a recap of the 28-day cleanse. Kind of I know you've been journaling and doing some video journaling and whatnot. So maybe a little review there and we can go back through it. What do you think?
Sure. That's a great idea.
Cool. Awesome. Anything else?
No, I'm complete.
Nice. For me, I am super excited because I onboarded a new coaching client this week.
Awesome.
Yes. So excited about her because she is open and excited, and she was a little nervous when we kind of had that pre-intro phone call, and by the time we got off the call and talked about how we're really playing for what she's playing for and not necessarily any of my preset goals, and working with her at her pace, she was just really excited, all in, loves the idea of the balance, the work-life balance, and so we're gonna get started this week.
Awesome.
Yes. So that's it for me, and on to today's topic. What would you like to say about today's topic, Nance?
What would I like to say? So today's topic is teaching and sharing with your teenagers about sex and really overall the relationship to sex. And so this is definitely a hot topic. And so this is something that we talk about a lot in terms of the relationship to sex and the maturity associated with sex And we're not necessarily talking about sexual intercourse when we say sex, although that's a component of it. And clearly our podcast is sex, money, and real estate. And overall, it's really the relationship to sex. So we have an almost 13-year-old and a 14-year-old, and we get questioned or asked a lot about sex and having conversations with them. And so when did you start having conversations with them about it? What do they look like? What do you talk about? How do you deliver the information? And those are all very valuable questions. And frankly, the answer is, when do you start? Is that it started from day one, really, I think is the answer to that question. And so, as we were talking about this topic, there are definitely things that came up in terms of delivery and those types of things. And yet we wanted to back up before we started talking about how we deliver the conversation or what it is that we talk about, and really say that, number one, it really starts with you. For sure.
And we're definitely going to talk about things as we go through this episode, and want you to stay tuned to the end so that we'll recap a few of those action steps, so that if you're in the same position we are, or getting into it, or picking it up at a different time in life, then you can use those tips as well. So it all starts with you, huh?
Yes.
Like you and me.
Yes, it definitely. Well, I mean, you, the individual.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Because if you're about to have this conversation, this intimate conversation with your child, regardless of whatever age that child is. I mean, this could be for a 22-year-old kid, or this can be for a 2-year-old kid. Wherever you are in your timeline as a parent, or as an aunt or an uncle or a grandmother or a grandfather, or really any relationship where you have children in your lives, and you're having these conversations with them about intimacy and sexuality and sensuality and those types of things, it all starts with you. Mm-hmm. So we would say before you enter into these conversations with them, like, just take some time, take a couple of weeks, take 30 days or something to, read or teach yourself different things, or at least familiarize yourself with multiple areas of these intimate conversations, whether it's reading different books or taking a course or videos or any of those things that would really elevate your maturity around that conversation. Because what it could lead into is there's not necessarily an authenticity with the material, or there's the energy of the conversation and the kids looking at you like, yeah, but you don't do these things, so why should I do these things? And it just reminds me of that conversation, that example, that parable around when there was a woman that took her child to Gandhi, and the woman asked Gandhi to tell her child not to eat sugar. Mm-hmm. So tell my child not to eat sugar because, my kid doesn't listen to me, and how can I get this kid off sugar? And he's like, okay. He's like, come back to me in 30 days. And then so 30 days pass, and then she brings her kid back to see Gandhi, and Gandhi's like, okay, I had to stop eating sugar for 30 days before I could tell your kid to stop eating sugar, because it's a conflict. I mean, clearly, there's that conflict there. So it's do as I say.
And do as I say, do as I do.
Yeah, do as I do, not do as I say, not
right.
as I do.
Right.
So it's really important. So there's that, teaching yourself and elevating your maturity. The other thing, if you're in a partnership or a relationship, and share with your partner about your experiences in growing up around sex, and like really get in there and share the emotions and the feelings and the disempowering conversations and all of those things. Talk about when your parents sat you down and had sex conversations, and how many times did they have that sex conversation, or what did they talk about, or did they revisit it, or any of those things? I mean, 99% of parents taught us very little or nothing, really.
For sure. And the thing is that, if you're having these conversations for the first time with your kid, it's like walking into a listing appointment and never having practiced doing a listing appointment before, right? Or taking a buyer out and knowing nothing about, the do's and don'ts of taking a buyer out. If you don't practice a few times first and, possibly relive some of those experiences through conversation with others and get that feedback, you're going to be very uncomfortable with the delivery, and your kid's going to pick up on that energy and the awkwardness or the uneasiness, if there is some, or some immaturity around it, is going to transfer directly into him, to your Gandhi point. So I really appreciate that, for sure. And the thing is that you're going to realize that some of the conversations that you're having with them are unhealed conversations that you're having with yourself, and so that does, again, give you an opportunity to level up and create a different experience for your kid.
Mm-hmm. And heal for you.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So, and it's this whole thing it's too big not to discuss. Unless you're playing for your kid to have the same experiences that you did. Because history will repeat itself unless you break the cycle.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. That's why it's very important. I mean, otherwise, just like what you just said, it's literally us choosing to pass on our limiting belief, our disempowering conversation around I'm not enough, I'm not big enough, I don't last long enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not, my boobs aren't big enough, or like that whole body image thing. I mean, it's literally passing that stuff on to your kids. And that's the body image piece. I mean, there's so much more to sexuality and intimacy than simply the physical.
Yes.
And, it's our intention and our desire to teach our boys that, we want them to experience pleasure, and we want them to experience sensuality and intimacy with themselves. And we, the intention is for them to really thrive in life and thrive with a partner or partners or however they roll. I mean, it's super important. I mean, that's how God created us, is with these opportunities to experience intense pleasure and immense pleasure and just the deliciousness of it. And we need to teach them. Need, there's a very mature approach to having these experiences and remembering that sexuality and sensuality, it all goes back to your health. It's vital. It's just like eating and exercising. It's vital to your health and sustainability. And that's how we coach. We coach to sustainability. So we coach sustainability in our sexual relationships, in money, and in real estate. I mean, that's how we coach is based on the production and production capability, or performance and performance capability. And so that's the balance of it all. And it's too big of a deal not to discuss. And that's why we start early. That's why we've always started. I mean, we've always had those conversations, the appropriate level of content at the appropriate age. And it's an ongoing conversation. Mm-hmm. I mean, how many times do we tell the kids to look both ways before they cross the street?
At least 1,000 times.
Yeah. How many times do we ask them, to do their jobs, and, this is how you do your jobs, and as a result, you gain commission, and then this is how you sort the commission, and then this is how you multiply or manage and multiply the commission. I mean, all of these things really, they're lifelong conversations.
Right.
So sex is a lifelong conversation, and you got to get your mind and your heart centered and mature in a place to have mature, loving, abundant conversations about it. So
nice. Yeah, that's beautiful. Because a lot of times, our sexual maturity is right. It's right where we stopped it's right where we stop learning. So for a lot of us, it's like right around maybe 16 or 17, and that's the height of, you could be a 40-year-old walking around with a 16-year-old maturity level around, your sexual health and sexual maturity.
Yeah. I mean, even 12 and 13 and 14, like really, when do you first start having those conversations? It's not even conversations with parents. It's you learn your friends, or you learn from porn, or you learn from videos, or back then we learned from magazines. I mean, I guess they have magazines, but
Right.
the kids have accessibility to so much now on
Right.
the internet and YouTube and all that kind of stuff.
And guess what? You can turn off the Wi-Fi, and you can put on all the parental controls, and you can do all the stuff that you think that you need to do to prevent you think you're preventing something, and they're still gonna find it. They still got friends. They're very smart, and so if it's something that they're looking for, they're gonna find it. So knowing that they're going to find it and accepting that, getting out of denial that they're not going to find it, and promoting the maturity, promoting the conversation, the maturity around it, means that when they do find it, they're going to have a different approach to looking at it or thinking about it, which will translate in the conversations with their friends, and definitely have a ripple effect.
Sure. And yet, I guess when they're looking for it and they find it, I mean, they don't have any of these conversations or this foundational information around it, they're certainly going to pervert it, which is back to what you originally were saying, was that the sexual conversation, the learning essentially stops. Like they think that they know it all by the time that they're 16 and 17, between those very formative teenage years, that most adults literally stop learning, and they're operating off of that teenage mindset and taking that teenage mindset into their marriages, and then into the bedroom, and then into the relationships as they're teaching their kids how to do it. And unless they're expanding, unless adults are expanding their consciousness around sex or reading, or again, back to that it starts with you reading and maturing their relationship around sex, they're literally going to pass that immaturity onto their kid.
Yep.
So it's super important. I mean, they're already exploring it at some level, to your point. So it's really important to be able to have that context around the conversation, which leads us right into number 2.
Nice. I think number 2 we had down for setting the space to have that conversation.
Yep. Yep. Definitely setting the space. And so what we mean by that is because we believe that it's an ongoing conversation, we have set up a consistent time and space that we call a trust talk. And it's a weekly conversation. It's 30 minutes per kid. The boys are separated, so they each have their own space.
Right.
And sometimes, it's the majority of time is you're having the conversation with them, because, there are definitely things that you're having conversation with them more so than I am, because, you're dad and it's the male perspective, and we'll get into that in a second in terms of topics. And yet there are times that I'm having conversation with them, and then there are times where you and I are having conversations with them together. And so the conversation breaks down to where part of it, we're talking about 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens.
Correct.
And they're reading that book, and they have reading assignments. And then, Bill or I will ask questions as it relates to the reading assignments, and going through the habits and really understanding great examples as it relates to them as teenagers of how to rep those habits and how to incorporate them into their lives and bring them into their classroom, or bring them into studying, or bring them into their appreciation and love for themselves. And then the other half of the conversation is literally about sex. And we say, okay, what kinds of conversations or questions do you have? What kinds of conversations are you hearing? What are the words that you're hearing? What do you need more understanding about? And they've come up with all kinds of
absolutely
really cool questions. And I was like, wow, it's very eye-opening. And
questions that you would think, you would almost I don't know. I think I make a lot of assumptions in what their knowledge base is, and and get surprised by some of the stuff that they do know and some of the stuff that they don't know. So and for example, the conversation around masturbation last week, and what they knew about men masturbating versus women masturbating, or really women do masturbate too, and then it was discovered that even though we've gone over female anatomy with them before, that there's still some learning to do around that. And so that's going to be part of the conversation this week. And and so Rex was like, I don't want to see real pictures, Dad. I was like, no, that's fine. We're gonna do some illustrations, and we'll still take a look at it, and you'll still have a higher understanding of where things are and what they do. So and I kind of figured that because we'd had that conversation with them before, and I know you've had that conversation with before, that there's a little more understanding around it, and yet it just goes to show you that some of the conversations need to be circled back on for sure.
Yeah, again, it's a lifelong conversation.
It is, and that's just the sex part, not even the relationship part that gets in. Then it's just. I wish I've talked about this on other episodes, that I had more conversation around it when I was younger, and because my sexual and relationships education, I never got really any relational conversations, or zero actually, and the sexual conversations I had very brief conversations with my parents about it, and there weren't any other mentors in my life to coach me up on it. So to your point earlier, Nance, about learning through outside stimulus, that's 100% how I learned about everything. Movies and porn, and and whatever I happened to oversee in other relationships, going through school, and all that kid stuff that happens in grade school and middle school and high school, and all that drama. And I thought that's what it was all about. So it's an ongoing conversation that will evolve as they evolve, and as you evolve too, because if you're into this lifelong learning, which I know a lot of you are, or else you wouldn't be listening to this conversation right now, then that your maturity around everything is going to evolve too, especially around sex and relationships.
Absolutely. And it does go without saying that. Well, I just wanted to be clear on how we set the space for the kids. So it's a very safe space. Right. They're allowed to ask anything and use any language. So if they happen to, it's free. It's free and clear. There's no consequences in terms of like punishment or any of that kind of stuff. It's a very loving, open, safe space. They can ask whatever they want to ask. They can express themselves however they want to express themselves. And sometimes there is a little nervousness or giddiness or like really discomfort because they're not quite sure. Like they understand that this feels a little odd to ask this question, but usually they'll settle down.
Yeah, and
after a while. Yeah, especially if we have them separated and not together.
Yeah, and we experimented with having the trust talks with them together, and really found that they were more open when they weren't in each other's energy. So that's how that evolved actually. And it just creates more privacy and more space for their own private thoughts.
Independent. Yeah, absolutely. So we definitely go over proper terminology. It is penis, and it is vagina, and it is clitoris, and it is breasts, and all of those things. And so they know the proper terminology, that the proper anatomy, and they know the slang too. Yep. So they may not know the slang, and we're literally sharing with them the slang. So this is, you may hear this in school, you may hear this from your friends, you may hear this on whatever. And it's allowing them the scope of really understanding the difference between maturity and immaturity, because all those slang conversations represent how sex is perverted in our society. And so it's important for them to not only feel the impact of the energy of those words versus the proper way, the more accurate way of saying something, or the accurate way of describing something, and then the immature versus the maturity of it. So it's super important. We want them to experience the full breadth of the experience and allow them to choose how they're going to relate to it.
Right.
So
again, it is a separate, it's almost like its own separate conversation where we talk about this slang terminology versus what the proper name or terminology would be, and so because that's a separate topic, anything else that is discussed throughout our half-hour trust talk is using the proper language. Because again, to your point, babe, the maturity comes with using the correct words and then the correct usage, for sure.
Absolutely. So, and that's how we started with them when they were young. We were, you're going to speak about a toe, an ear, nose, and eyes. So you're going to speak about a penis, a vagina, breasts, scrotum, whatever it is, in the same context. And the only reason that it happens to feel, or there's some judgment associated with it, is because there's the meaning around it. It's the legacy of the perversion of it. Oh my gosh, we can't talk about that.
Or I can only say balls, I can't say testicles.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Yeah.
Exactly. And so it all translates in this household. It all translates into like the same, like eyes are just as important as vulva.
Right.
It means the same. The weight of the conversation means the same. So it's very important. And so those younger years were about anatomy. It was about describing the purpose of it, just like I would teach them, or you would teach them the purpose of the digestive system. Well, we're going to teach the purpose of the reproductive system too. And so it was, those were like the early year conversations at the foundational work. And then as they got older and they had more friends and, obviously they were in school longer, then that's when we started layering in, this is the slang. This is what this means. This is this position, or yes, this is what, one of the questions, what's 69? Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot about that one.
So this is what that looks like. And here's how this looks like a 69. Oh, okay, cool. I don't ever want to talk about this again. Okay.
No problem.
So
but we still had the conversation,
But yeah, so that
was a family conversation, if I remember
that
right.
was a family conversation. And so those definitely happen too, the family conversations. The other thing that I want to touch on is intimacy. And so when they were babies and they were sitting in the tub, the importance of bathing them and being very loving and sharing with them about, the bath and bath time. And we used to give them massages when they were, I still give them massages. They're, where they would, their little arms and their little fingers and their little scalp and all kinds of stuff. And it was part of their nighttime routine is when they would get bathed and they would have a little baby massage. And I used that apricot oil from Burt's Bees. That was my favorite to use. And so it was showing and teaching them, the art of loving and touch and connection and nurturing and nourishing and those types of things. And I would say to them, this is your fingers and this is your arms and this is your feet. And it demonstrated to them that their body is beautiful and that they have an opportunity to really connect with their body and be in their body and trust their body, that it's going to run and play and laugh and, all of those things. And then as they were able to speak and growing up, I would encourage them, like, how does this feel? Do you prefer, to this washcloth or this, one of those little poof balls, or, do you like your back scratched, or, and I would encourage them to share with me as I would give them the massage, like what felt better than other things, or, I'd like my shoulders massaged, or I like my feet massaged. And so it's encouraging them to use their voice, their authentic voice, and ask for what they would like or what they enjoyed. And so, again, they can take that practice into their adult relationships and use their voice to express to their partner what they want to experience, so that it's empowering, and again, it's nourishing and connected and powerful and pleasurable and all of those things. And, it's very important to be able to express yourself in the bedroom and to, connect with your partner or connect with yourself. I think we overlook the importance of self-pleasuring, or the importance of connecting on that intimate level with your partner, being able to speak for what you want. Because I know personally, even with our relationship, there were times where I literally would stifle or withhold that request because I was afraid of what you would think of me, or I was afraid of what, oh no, you would think I'm weird, or he's gonna say no, or like all of that garbage came up. And so we've really been practicing on nourishing that aspect of our relationship too. And that goes back to the orgasmic meditations. And that's why, which is episode 1. And we've talked about orgasmic meditations before also, but it's really the art of cultivating the practice of expressing what you want and what you feel and what feels great for you. So all of those little nuances are also part of those conversations and really the relational part of it too. So yes, we talk about sex in the space, and yes, we talk about the relationship aspect of the space. And as they get into relationships with others, we'll enter into that space with them too, and talk about agreements and so on. So
yeah, the conversations are going to continue to evolve, and you're right, it's going to be agreements with yourself, agreements with others. We'll end up having conversations around setting standards for their relationships. Because it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to look like what it did for me. Like, feeling a little, always feeling a little what's the word?
Needy.
Thank you. Wanty.
Okay.
Needy, or just not empowered. In standing in my power around my knowledge, or what I knew or didn't know, and a lot of fear, just a lot of fear. And I know there's going to be fear because of the maturity level, and they're going to have some fear because of the maturity level, and that's what you do as teenage angst, right? But if they have a few more tools than I did, I know that they're going to do a greater job with it, for sure.
Absolutely. And so again, those agreements that you're making with yourself, or the intimate relationship standards that you're setting, those are life skills. And so we'll be able to teach them how to take that into the relationship. And so therefore they're honoring their personal intimate standards. They're honoring their personal sexual style, whatever that may be, however that shows up, and thereby honoring others, other people's intimacy and their sexual style.
And can you imagine to have, a 16-year-old or a 15-year-old with sexual or intimate standards, relationship standards? How easy if they can do that at that age, how easy it's going to be for them to create standards around their work life, or their money, their business, to have standards. I mean, because who has standards around their intimate relationships?
You mean besides us?
Yeah. And a few others that we know. But you know what I'm saying? So,
absolutely.
You can say you can have business standards, and I think it's almost easier to have, quote unquote business standards, because it doesn't feel so crunchy. But if you can really address those intimate standards, that will translate way easier into, business and personal and beyond. For sure.
And finances. Yeah. Because again, it starts with personal. It starts with self. And as those agreements are made and you're honoring and you're impeccable with your word, it translates into business standards, money standards, social standards, like all of those things. It absolutely 100% translates into a higher, a greater version of yourself. So
cool. So
yeah.
Just to recap a little bit, it's a lifelong conversation. It's a conversation you can start having now, whether they're 5 or 8, around relationships,
Or 22.
or
25
22.
or 30. I mean, really, can you imagine, like, for older children, adult children,
Mm-hmm.
sitting down and saying, "Hey, look, this is what I'm learning. This is what I'm finding out to be true and accurate, and I want to have this deep, intimate conversation with you because you're an adult, and it's important to me that you experience the totality of you."
Mm-hmm.
I mean, oh my gosh, your kid is gonna be like, "Who is this?" And this is awesome.
Right.
Yes, let's talk about this. Yes, you know what? This is what I wanted to ask you. What do you think about this? Boop.
And you don't necessarily have to lead the conversation. You all can learn and mature together.
Mm-hmm.
You can study some of the same things and learn together and have some experiences together where you're maturing together. I love that 22 or 25 or 50 thing, and I look forward to having these lifelong conversations with the boys that started when they're much younger, and they're still young. And I know it's going to continue for as long as we're all together, because this is, what it's all about.
Absolutely. Well, they're playing to be 125 plus too.
Absolutely.
So, it's food, exercise, and sexual health.
And where do we learn all? Where's a great resource for that to learn more about that?
The Tao of Health, Sex, and Longevity.
Amazing book for sure.
Absolutely.
And it's not on Audible. You'll have to actually sit down and read it.
It is. Yeah, it's one of those amazing books that you'll utilize as a textbook and go back to it and refer back to it over and over and over again.
Cool.
Yeah. It's all about the law. I mean, it's really all about the law of gender, the yin and yang in all of us. So you want to master that law, then you'll absolutely utilize that book as a source, a resource. Connected to source.
Cool. So the biggest action step I think that I can throw out there right now is to heal yourself so that you can have those conversations. Eliminate the secrecy and whatever you think is perverse, and know that it's your normal and it's all normal, and it's just, it doesn't feel normal because you think you're separate too, or special in some way. And there's so many others that are having the same internal conversations as you. And there's so many out there that are others that are looking to have these conversations so that, you can find another way to relate to yourself and others. And
in a healthy way.
In a healthy way.
Yeah.
And when you do that, then you can have healthier conversations with your kids too.
Absolutely. Yes. It all goes back to health. Because if you don't have your health, it's nothing. I mean, it all goes back to health.
Your health is your wealth. Yes,
your health is your true wealth, for sure.
Awesome. Anything else, baby?
I don't think so. I mean, that, we talked a lot about it. It's definitely a very triggering, confronting conversation.
Yep.
So we are happy to continue the conversation. We're happy to answer your questions. Of course, go to our Facebook group, which is Love, Money, and Real Estate, because Facebook won't let us use the word sex in sex, money, and real estate, which just goes to show you how triggering sex as a word is, that we can't use the sex, money, and real estate as our Facebook group name, y'all. That's how controversial, that's how confronting, that's how clandestine people make sex, is that we can't talk about it. So much that our Facebook group cannot be called Sex, Money, and Real Estate.
If we want to be on Facebook, right?
If we want to be on Facebook, yeah. Which of course we do, because it's important to have these conversations. Exactly. It's so funny. Sex is a red flagged word.
So reach out.
So much healing to happen.
Join the Facebook group. Reach out. Get on the Instagram feed. And our email is sexmoneyrealestate. It's still sexmoneyrealestate@gmail.com.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Love goes out to all. Peace, love, and maturity. Peace.
Bye.
Bye.
Wow, what a show. Thank you so much for listening. If you're inspired, we ask that you share the podcast with one person and subscribe and follow our show. I'm Nancy Jameson.
And I'm Bill Jameson.
And remember, it's a great life.
Woo!
Quick note about the Sex, Money, and Real Estate podcast. We are not doctors or licensed therapists. We are a joyous, abundant, and mature couple passionately sharing our story of growth around sex, money, and real estate. Our thoughts, opinions, and beliefs are our own, so please consult your doctor, healthcare provider, or your broker regarding any questions or issues you have related to your physical or mental health or specific state laws regarding your real estate business.